Sumo is a tough sport, a violent sport. It takes a certain edge to be successful on the dohyo, to the point that some wrestlers haven't lived up to their potential just because they're too nice. But outside the ring, that's exactly what we want. Look at their chubby faces and big round bellies and But there are so many sumo wrestlers, there's no time to make friends with them all. That, my friends, is where we come in. Thanks to our unique scientific blend of feelings and vibes, we now present all the sumo wrestlers you want, or maybe don't want, as your BFF. Working from the bottom up. Ryuden. Look at those beady little eyes, the miserable countenance. It's hard to find a more sociopathic expression randomly out in the world. He always looks like he's trying to get away with something. And don't forget, he's also a complete asshole. -6 out of 10. Oshoma. Okay, this one, I don't know how to make it fun. Serious bullying allegations got put on him. Nothing was proven, but accusations like this are rarely outright false, and the fact no one stood up for him says tons. 0 out of 10. Now that that's done, Shishi, the awkward friend who likes a girl you know and you're willing to make introductions, but then you have to tell him why a bunch of his ideas for a date are way over the top. Plus, if he does have a girlfriend, he only talks about them as a pair, not himself as an individual. 2 out of 10.
Sag.
Takara Fuji. He's either working or says he's too tired from work to do anything, even though all you're trying to do is bring over a pizza and some drinks and hang out. 3 out of 10. Chura Naomi. Big no one believes in me energy. He's probably a decent guy, but maybe he doesn't trust anyone's kindness is genuine, especially if he looks this mopey after hanging around Ura every day. 3 out of 10. Shona Naomi. Usually looks like a kid who feels bad about getting bullied, and worse because he's big and blames himself for letting it happen. Nothing ever seems to go right, which makes him sympathetic, but then he wrecks a lot of that sympathy by always needing a ride somewhere. 3 out of 10. Bushozan. Never stops thinking, I devoted my life to this, and it's obvious even though he never says it and he always tells you everything's fine. 3 out of 10. Roga. Always stressed out by high expectations at work, plus he lives far from home and misses his family. The only way to cheer him up is if you somehow learn to cook his favorite meal the way his mom does. 3 out of 10, but 7 out of 10 if you actually do learn how to cook his favorite meal the way his mom does, and you like it enough to keep doing it. Gonoyama. Willing to play almost any game you want, but he only ever plays one character, and it's always the character who looks or fights the most like him. 4 out of 10. Nishikigi. Drinks too much by his own admission. Will still go out, but then you gotta get him home okay. 4 out of 10. Onosato. He's been treated like a star his whole career and tries not to let it affect him, but it does affect him because there's no way for it not to. Has trouble really connecting with people because it's hard to meet anyone else who's been treated as the savior of a 2,000-year-old national sport. 4 out of 10. Chiyoshoma. Wins at most board games, but always has a moment where he points at the rulebook and says, "Is it legal? Is it legal?" Partially redeemed by his awareness that he is a walking meme. 4 out of 10. Shodai. Appreciates genuine friends, but is so down on himself much of the time that supporting him can feel like its own weight. He makes good wine suggestions at least. 4 out of 10. Tamawashi. Always says he's too old to make new friends, but he always gives advice on working smarter, not harder. 4 out of 10. Kota Shoho. He's a good wrestler who won't achieve the level of his childhood friend and stablemate, but also has a younger brother with hope coming up the ranks. Lots of I don't want to talk about work energy, to the point where he constantly peppers you with questions about anything and everything so he doesn't have to talk about himself. 4 out of 10. Oho. Tries to be friendly, but he's always hung up on why his latest accomplishment doesn't mean anything. 4 out of 10, but 7 out of 10 if you also deal with a lot of pressure from family that's way more successful than you. Ichi Yamamoto. Ex-cop who's just happy he joined a less violent profession. 5 out of 10. Sada Naomi. Never, ever stops working. If he can hang out, it's on the weekend, and it's always either before or after one of his jobs. The fact he actually takes the time to hang out once in a while is remarkable. 5 out of 10. Nishiki Fuji. If you play a game like Werewolf where people get eliminated one at a time, no matter which game it is, no matter the number of people playing, he's always one step from being out until somehow he makes it to the end. At least he's not a dick about it. 5 out of 10. Toki Hayate tries not to take it personally when people talk about him being small for the sport even though he's above average height, but you can tell it bothers him sometimes. He can take a joke about it if he knows you well enough though. 5 out of 10. Hirata Umi, scary and tense about everything, but doesn't flip tables and will also be the first one to jump into a fight with you against a bigger guy. Slight downside is you know he actually hopes you get into a fight so he can do that. 5 out of 10. Koto Sakura, so low-key, he's the guy that everyone sees but no one notices. Never bothers anyone, but people tend to forget he's there until you get him to show his impression of The Rock. 5 out of 10. Takeru Fuji, whatever friend rating you'd give Matthew McConaughey, Takeru Fuji gets it too. This list, 5 out of 10. Endo, just wants to stay home because he's married and if he goes out too many women will hit on him. He's also better than you at Tekken. 5 out of 10. Midori Fuji, doesn't have as many interests as most people, but the things he likes to do, he knows how to do them perfectly. Willing to teach his skills and surprisingly patient, but he'll eventually say, just keep practicing and walk away if someone's not getting it. 6 out of 10. Onokatsu has a party trick where he stands in one place and lets people try and push him out of the way. It's really fun when it's like two couples all working together and he still doesn't move. 6 out of 10. Asakoryu. Every time someone tells him they're surprised how small he is for a sumo wrestler, he picks them up and walks around with them until they take it back. He's never mad about it, but he also enjoys how embarrassed they usually are afterwards. 6 out of 10. Mitakeumi has the rare perspective of someone who lived in the spotlight but fell all the way out of it. Gives good advice, but sometimes just stares into space and you gotta wait for him to come back. 6 out of 10. Kirishima rarely hangs out because he's always working on a project, either for work or for himself. But when something breaks, he doesn't get down about it, he just keeps working. And having friends with that kind of positivity is never bad. 6 out of 10. Teruno Fuji, intense competitor and not to be trifled with. Just ask Tobizaru. He's also way too busy to ever do anything. But he actually does smile outside of competition, and as both his original stablemates and the Miyagino newcomers will attest, he's a very helpful guy. 6 out of 10. Hoshoryu, enormous best friend worst enemy vibes. Even less to be trifled with than the Yokozuna if that's possible, and absolutely holds grudges. But when he's in a good place, he's one of the more genuinely happy guys in the sport. 7 out of 10, -2 out of 10 if you ever piss him off. Meisei, good at so many things, people take it for granted that he can give him a hand with just about anything. So he really appreciates it when somebody actually notices his ability. 7 out of 10. Takeyasu, too busy being a dad to hang out, but will 100% help you move a couch. 7 out of 10. Hokuto Fuji will absolutely play WWE with the kids at the barbecue. 7 out of 10. Wakataka Kage, good guy with a good family that'll invite you over for holidays if you have nowhere else to go. Also the most likely Rikishi to give you actual useful tips on effective lifting. 7 out of 10. Wakamoto Haru, a lot like his brothers, but also is a middle child and thus more likely to rely on his friends. It's science. 7.5 out of 10. Abi seems incredibly chill outside of the ring. Breaking COVID rules wasn't smart, but it seems like he's learned, and getting in trouble for goofing around on social media makes him a more charming type of rebel. 8 out of 10. Atami Fuji. Anytime you do something competitive with him that he's good at, he doesn't always want to try his best because he doesn't want you to feel bad if you lose. You can convince him that it's okay, but it takes some effort. He gives the best hugs though. 8 out of 10. Daisho comes across as all business until you see him with a puppy. Look at him with the puppy! 8 out of 10. Takano Sho smiles in basically every picture of him that exists. Spends a good amount of time practicing self-care, so he's not around a ton, but when he is, he's great to hang out with. 9 out of 10. And finally, Tobizaru and Ura. Despite having this incredibly intense, dangerous job, they're happier to go to work than anyone you know, and that joy carries over to everything else. The one difference between them is that Tobizaro will absolutely nail you with a prank if you know him long enough, but even then it'll be a friendly prank, not a mean one. 10 out of 10 for both. And that's our list of Sumo friends. The top probably isn't a surprise to fans of the channel and people with taste, but I repeat myself. Remember, this is science and thus fact, so we will be taking no questions. Have a wonderful day.